So I'm going to start that recording now. Thank you so much for joining us tonight at the Freckle webinar. We're just going to give you an overview on what Freckle's about and how to use it. We're going to get into a little bit on how to get started with Freckle if you have a team or if you're a solo user. My name is Rasa. You can reach me at my email address, Rasa, R-A-S-A, at letsfreckle.com. If you have any questions after tonight, or feel free to post your questions in the questions section here on GoToWebinar. I will read them out loud and then answer the question as we go. So if you haven't logged into Freckle yet, haven't seen it at all, this is the dashboard. This is going to be the same for all users. What you see along the top is time for this particular week. You can see that I don't have any time logged. So if I just want to quickly log some time for today, it's always going to default for today. You're going to see I've got 2 hours logged today, Wednesday, December 9th. You're going to see the entry here along the bottom. It's real simple at the top here. You can see what I did. I'm going to go 3 hours, tab over. I can start typing the name of the project, pick the project that I'm working on, and go ahead and log it. Now you can see that I've got 5 hours logged against today. As I put my cursor over it, it's split into 2 different projects. This little timer area is actually quite smart. You can put a 2, tab over, it's going to recognize that as 2 hours. If you put, say, 15 minutes in and tab over, it's going to recognize that as 15 minutes. If you did intend something to be 15 hours, you can override that by putting 15H and tabbing over, and it will recognize it as a 15 hours. Also in your default settings, it's going to default to today as the day that you want to be logging, but you've got 2 quick views to be able to log time 2 days in the past. So if I wanted to go ahead and log some time for yesterday because I forgot, or excuse me, Monday because I forgot to do that, I can do so. Or if it's not in the most recent past, you can pick the calendar and log time for any day. As you fill up your week, you're going to see these little pie charts showing you what's going on for your day. It's quite simple. The other and kind of what I consider a more accurate way of logging your time is with our timer function. You just click on the timer here and all of your projects will show here. You can drag this down as many projects as you need to. You'll notice that the most recent projects that I've logged time to are going to float to the top. So if you are in an organization and you have 25 projects, but you as an individual is only working on 1 or 2 projects at a time, those projects that you're working on will be accessible to you at the top. So what I can do is just hit the play button, start my day working on the ARC Printing Company project. Let's say 30 minutes into the project, I get a phone call from Parks and Recreation. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play on Parks and Rec. You'll see that the ARC Printing Company has paused at 30 minutes and that the Parks and Rec has picked up. Let's say that phone call went for about 20. Oh, all right, so the phone call went for 30 minutes. I'm done with that. I'm going to hit check mark. Well, there we go. And it was a phone call, log it. And I'm going to go back to my ARC printing, hit the play button again, and I've picked up where I've left off. You can have multiple projects throughout the day going. So if you had, if you get to the evening time and you just wanted to close out all of your projects at once, you could do that. It's just going to log the total time that you've done today. So you can continue to toggle between projects. One thing that is a little bit of a nuance that I always like to point out to new users is if you're going to go ahead and log time, and let's say it was a phone call and a meeting, and you're going to head and log it. When you come over to the dashboard, you're going to see Torturing Dwight was a phone call and a meeting. So here I have 30 minutes to the project that is Torturing Dwight and the tag or task of the phone call and a meeting. And perhaps it was a phone call that also happened to be a meeting, and 30 minutes is going to be logged to both of these tags. But maybe it was really only a 15-minute phone call, and then I met with some of my other colleagues later for 15 minutes about this same project. So that wouldn't actually be accurate. So you would want to edit this, take away one of the tasks, and say it was really only a 15-minute phone call, and save. And then it was a 15-minute meeting on top of that. And then we're going to log that. So now you still have 30 minutes set to the Torturing Dwight project, but 15 minutes was dedicated to a phone call and then 15 minutes was to a meeting. So that does make a difference. Sometimes multiple hashtags are apropos for a single entry, but just making sure that sometimes they need to be split up. And how you would do that in the timer is actually quite simple. If you have your project running and you spend 30 minutes here, let's say this was a phone call. Oops, there we go, phone call, and you go ahead and log it, you can restart that project because right after that phone call, maybe you went into some other activity. So when you're ready to log that, you can say, oh, I was doing 40 minutes of researching for that particular client. And then how it looks back in the dashboard, same thing. You've got 30 minutes that was a phone call and 45 minutes that was towards researching. But all told, it was an hour and 15 minutes for this particular project. Also, when you're doing tags, you can do meeting with the staff. You can continue to write a more individual description along with a hashtag to give yourself either individual notes or something to queue for a manager or even a client if you're logging towards a client. So that's going to be the basic dashboard. That's the same for everybody. We also have an in-app user for up here. You can have your Mac app would sit up here in your dashboard. I personally like to use the timer and keep my window just askew so I see it out of the corner of my eye, but some folks like it the Mac app as well, so it's kind of an individual choice. We also have smartphone apps. So if you wanted to use your start stop on your smartphone, you could do that as well, or if you're working in the field. The pulse is real simple. It's just kind of a bird's eye view of what's going on in your company. I'm going to go back to October. October, you can see in our dummy account here, we've got a ton of data. So if I just put my cursor over here, I can see almost 30 hours on this particular day, Friday the 2nd, was 13 different projects and 4 different people tracking. I can add time from here. I can run a report from here. It just gives me a nice view of what's happening in the company, or if I'm an individual, it gives me a nice view of what I've done over a longer period of time. As you scroll down, you can see it's the same data digested in a little bit of a different way. Everything is clickable, so you can see that this particular project you can click on an individual, you can look at a full report. We're going to get to reportings in a minute, but you can move through the system by clicking on different things. And that can give you a different view of the data depending on what's important for you at the time or what kind of reports you need to run. We're going to skip over reporting for a second. If you have people, this is quite simple. You want to invite people to use the system. You're going to put their email address in here and decide what types of permissions they're going to have. So we have 4 sets of permissions. Supervisor is kind of the broadest, has most access to the system. And contractor has the least amount of access to the system. So depending on what is important for your company, you're going to want to choose for the individual what type of permissions that they need. And you just put your cursor over it and it'll tell you exactly what you need. You can spend some time reading through these and deciding who's going to get what. Now, if you have a bunch of people who are all going to be leaders, you can put all of their email addresses at once, choose leader, and add people, and their invitations will be sent. Once you have people in here, if you need to change it for some reason, you can always pull up and make a switch here. Just switch them to coworker and save and close. And now this person has been changed. So projects is a kind of along the same thing. You want to add projects with the pink add project button. Enter the name of the project here. Now, if the project has a parent group or a client name, you can add this here. So you can see here Coca-Cola. Maybe it's Academy. Oh, I can spell today. Okay, so maybe you're going to do an ad for the Academy Awards. So I'm going to add that as a new project for my client Coca-Cola and simply hit add projects. Now you can see under my client Coca-Cola, I have got the new project Academy Awards. I can delete the project. Once time has been added, I can only archive the project. I can view the settings. Now, in this particular in the dummy account that I have here, our default setting is a 15-minute billing increment. You can in your settings pick any increment for the default billing increment, but per project you can change that. So that's something that you want to have here. The group or client name is here, which we already added when we added it, but if you needed to change it for any reason, you could. The name, or if you wanted to have it a particular color, you could change the color. And if it's important for you to budget time, so you wanted to set maybe a 65-hour budget for this project. It doesn't repeat, it's just one particular project. You can do that, hit save new budget settings. If this was a project perhaps that every month you want to set a particular budget for, you just drop down here and say this is a weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annually. Depending on the contract that you have with that particular client or the project that you're working on, and you can go ahead and save that. If you needed an alert, you can have set up an alert as well. So as I scroll down here, I'm going to look at a couple of different things. You can see this here, reception, under the Dunder Mifflin project group or client group. You're going to see that reception is a particular project, that we've had 50 hours budgeted to this project, and that there's only about 8 hours remaining, so that the pie here is getting full, and it's giving you a color cue of orange, letting you know, hey, we're getting close to that full time. As we scroll down, we can see that this new client marketing project is very full, and that it's giving you a red cue, whereas our new client cold calling hasn't had a lot of time logged to it. So it's still in green and only a small piece of the pie. So it's a nice, easy visual cue to get you familiar with what's going on with your project, depending on the details that you need to drill down on. So if you do have a project, let's see here. We want to click on the Scranton Chamber of Commerce. I've got 2 hours logged to this. Here's where you can add expenses and line items to a particular project. So if you travel somewhere, you needed something like that, you simply add it in here. And you can run reports. Everything is clickable, so you can run reports here. You can even click on Jim and get his activity, his recent activity. You can click on a different project name, get the activity for that project. So it's really easy to kind of click through to get a sense of what's going on, either for yourself or for your team. Up here, you can look at all of your projects. You can look at archived, active. You can just do it project by name. I like to keep them grouped by project group. That's up to you. You can also look at it as the newest or uninvoiced, and obviously a search. You can download everything to Excel or CSV, and you're going to see that in the upper right-hand corner of most of our pages. All right. Moving on to tags. So if you're going to sit down before you set up your Freckle account, you're going to think of, well, who are my clients or my different groups that I want to use? What are the projects for each group? And then what are the tasks that I want to do, or tags? And that's where you're going to put in the hashtags. Simply add tags here, add them all in, hit add tags, and you'll be able to start logging time against them. When you are logging time, you can do new tags. So if you wanted to do like brand new tag, you can make that a tag on the go by adding time. You can make this brand new tag on the go. Now, if you don't want your staff to be adding tags like that in your administrative settings, you can actually take that permissions away from everybody except for yourself or except for supervisors. But if you are a smaller team, sometimes it's useful to be able to make new tasks on the fly. So that's going to be an individual choice. Just quickly on our integration and apps, we have a direct integration with Basecamp, QuickBooks, GitHub, Beanstalk, PlanScope, and Zapier. So Zapier has over 300 different apps. So if you are working with a project management software or something else that you think would be useful to have your time tracking in, likely that they're also integrated with Zapier. You can have a look there. We also have an API if you wanted to do something more on the custom front. So reporting. I know I'm going over this quickly, so feel free to ask questions or write your questions down and email me. Reporting is going to be a default to this month. You can set up a very particular set of dates. I'm actually going to look at October. So I'm going to go back to from October 12th to October, let's see here, 16th. So that's the period of time I'm going to look at. I'm going to look at clients or projects. So I'm going to have a look at my just me. You can see that your clients are grouped in kind of this yellow, and they have parentheses behind it on the number of projects that have been assigned to that particular client. And then all of the projects down here, so you can choose a client grouping, which will automatically group all of the projects assigned to it, or you can pick and choose a very particular project, whatever's best for you in terms of what you're trying to retrieve from the report. You can also pick a subset of tags if you want to drill down very specifically, or you can deselect or select certain individuals. So I'm just going to run this as a little bit of a wider net. You can have a look here that on October from the 12th to the 16th, these are the different projects that I'm taking a look at. And if you remember, it was the Dunder Mifflin client tag. These are the folks that have logged time against it. It's a nice little breakdown visual of like what's taken up the most of people's time, hours breakdown, tags breakdown. And as we get down here, it's going to be the individual entries. So it's a lot of detailed information. You can see here that we can take this information to Excel, CSV, or PDF. If you wanted to save this report, you could. You could share this report. A shared report is going to give you a link that you can share externally. A saved report is super useful. If you save this, you can pull it up the following week, change the dates, and have all of the same data and compare the report week over week. So if that's useful for you, often saving a report is. If you need to approve time entries, it's going to show you this here. You can see the different time entries that haven't been approved yet, so you can approve those time entries. And if there's any uninvoiced time, it's going to show here on the report. So I know that's kind of a lot to go through in a short period of time, but I highly recommend getting some data into the system while you're in trial, and then pulling the reports start to be a lot more dynamic because it's your information, it's your stuff that you need to see for yourself. So we have this report here. If you notice, I shared it, but I also saved it. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my reports tab. And down here, you have all of the shared reports here. And down here at the bottom is the most recent saved report. So I can click on that again. And if I wanted to run it for a different time period, I could simply go back and say, all right, let's look at it for the following week, the 19th to the 23rd, and rerun the report. And that's going to give me the same grouping of folks. If I had picked tags, it would have been the same grouping of tags, same grouping of projects and people. And this is going to give me the kind of the next week's information. So I can kind of compare and contrast the two if that was important for me to do. So I'm going to quickly go over invoicing. So I do have time on this particular report that needs to be invoiced. So I'm going to go ahead and click the invoice button. Up here at the top, you can make some choices for all of your invoices. And then the invoice itself, you can tweak so that every time I pull up my Dunder Mifflin client, I'm going to get the same details on the invoice. If I have a different client and I've made the invoice catered to them, it will save when I pull up invoices for that. So you only really have to do it one time per client or one time per project, and it will remember your settings and save it for the next time. So you've got some information you can fill in here. As I scroll down, you can show that there's an hourly rate that needs to be. So maybe you say it's a $45 hourly rate or a flat rate, depending on what's going on. You can do include a sum for each project, customize rates for different team members. So if different team members have different prices, you can change it there. You can append a full report. Whatever settings is appropriate for you and your client, this is your opportunity to kind of set those. And once you're ready, you can save and preview. You can always delete it, so it's not a problem. Don't worry about making mistakes. This invoice is not paid. You can share the link with your client. If you do want to mark it paid, this is what it'll look like when it's paid. And then going back to the Freckle system, we can look in our invoices tab, and here's the invoice that we created today, paid. Maybe we want to review it again in a report, or I'm looking here going, oh, look at this. I have an outstanding invoice from October 26th. It doesn't look like it's paid. Let me look at that report. You can click on the report and you can see some of the details about that invoice. Maybe resend it to the client, figure out why it isn't paid. So I know that was like the very, very, very basics and super quick tour of Freckle. It's not by any stretch of the imagination everything that we do, but it's what's going to kind of get you started and get you familiar with the product while you are in trial. If you have any questions, like I mentioned before, feel free to ask them here in the forum. I'll stick around. Otherwise, you can email me, Rasa, RASA, at letsfreckle.com. My colleagues in the support team, you can email them as well, support at letsfreckle.com. Again, I thank you so much for your attendance tonight. I know I went through things quickly. Feel free to use our help site. So at the bottom of your login, there's help and support. This will pop up. There we all are. You can visit our help site from here. The nice thing about our help site is you can search. Things are put in by topic. And if you click on something and you want to know how do I create a new project, we have screenshots and videos for you to look at if you have any particular questions. So again, I'll stick around if there's any questions. Otherwise, have a great evening.